What's good, YouTube? It's basically anime, and today we're going to be talking about what is honestly the hottest manga out there for Shonen Jump, Jujutsu Kaisen. But today is different from most videos because today I'm going to be discussing it with a very special friend of mine, CADomain, and what is his channel's first ever collab. Now, Jujutsu Kaisen just got finished or is near finishing the Culling game arc, an arc that was meant to be the spiritual successor to the Shibuya incident arc, and we all know how that went. Now, this arc is known or should be known for being an extremely action-packed arc with a lot of hype moments and fights. So today we're going to be ranking the fights from the worst to best. And go ahead and introduce yourself, CADomain.
Yeah, obviously shout out basically anime for let me slide on the channel. Honestly, it's long overdue, but yeah, I'm excited because we've talked about the Culling games of Shibuya overall, comparing them on my channel, and we're gonna actually really, because we talk about how we think the Culling games have probably some of the best fights. So we're really gonna get to really dissect the best fights in arguably JJK. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and like he just said, we did a channel or a video over on this channel, really just comparing the Shibuya and Culling games arc overall. So make sure to check that out. His info will be in the description. But without further ado, into what is the worst fight of the Culling games.
Yeah, we can go take turns on this. So the first one is Hikari versus Charles, and I'm not gonna lie, for me, I've read the Culling games, I want to say twice, really, from beginning to end.
Yeah.
This is a fight that I really almost always forget actually happened in the series. How do you feel about the fight overall, just in general?
This is also a fight I forgot actually happened when I was thinking about ranking the fights on my head, because it is more of a prelude fight to the mega fight of Hikari versus Kashimo. And this fight suffers from being a giant information dump because it was also the first time we saw Hikari's domain expansion be revealed. So a lot, and I mean a lot of the information that we know of the domain was shown in this fight. So it kind of made the fight not seem of a fight, but more of a domain expansion showcase.
Yeah, almost like a tutorial. I understand that.
Yeah, tutorial.
I mean, I think Hikari, I do like his moveset, the whole luck, the whole idea of the luck and stuff. That's really cool. I honestly don't even remember what Charles. I don't even honestly remember what Charles his abilities or his moveset actually was.
It was nothing to remember.
Yeah, it was just kind of a whatever thing. I don't think it's a great fight in JJK overall. Pretty much after this, I'd say. I think after this one and the next one, then we really get to some really, really peak JJK fights. But
definitely,
yeah, I don't really have much to say about
this fight was really just much of a setup. So, but yeah. Next fight on the list, we have Panda versus Kashimo, a very short, maybe 1 or 2 chapter fight that occurred between Hikari versus Charles and Hikari versus Kashimo.
I guess kind of what you were saying here, we're kind of anticipating the whole Hikari versus Kashimo fight. So the first fight we get is Hikari versus Charles, and this next one we get is Panda versus Kashimo. So we kind of get a little bit respect. We kind of get a little bit of a glance into what Kashimo can kind of do, and shout out Panda because I actually do like Panda's character and I like his moveset and stuff, but obviously he gets smacked and we see Hikari has to come and save him. But
yeah, this fight was definitely a prelude to the Hikari versus Kashimo fights, but I did like Panda. He did get a little flashback for his character. We get to see a little bit of his backstory a little bit, but yeah, I definitely mess with Panda as a character. I mean, I would love to have him as a friend in real life, but bro got smacked in the fight.
The moment Shibuya really hit, we saw Panda really fight, and he obviously has the whole forms, which the gorilla mode and all that stuff. That's really cool. But like you said, he gets kind of smacked. But it's cool because Panda, we really get explained how the difference in power between characters. Because I think up till now, Panda's still a relatively powerful character, and he's just completely outcast by Kashimo. And then it's okay, Hikari is one of these legendary people that Gojo referenced, or I think it was either Gojo reference or it was a Yuta reference. It was both. One of the two. But the point is exactly both. So Gojo referenced these legendary guys that are these people on the good side that Yuji needs to find and basically befriend and whatnot, or basically make a team. It's like a little fake team, whatever. But so this is the first person, which is Hikari. So it's kind of we can see the difference between Panda's strength and Hikari's strength, and it's a really good precursor fight because we get to the next fight, Hikari, we know it's peak, but yeah, it's a cool fight. I like it.
Yeah, definitely a character moment by also setting up Hikari's big event. But moving on, we have Yuji versus Higurama, which may be surprising to some of the Yuji fans, or I've seen a lot of Higurama love in the fandom to have this fight this low. That's but funny. I mean, I wasn't messing with the fight uber high. You know what I'm saying? Because of course it was a cool fight. I didn't really see it much as a fight, then more as a big character moment for Yuji and seeing how he really processed the guilt from Shibuya. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, I was about to say I agree. Like honestly, looking at the battle, like I don't even think the battle's that remarkable. But to me, it's a whole character moment because we talked about in my on my channel, on the video on my channel, the Shibuya moment was crazy because Yuji he doesn't even have time to process what's happening, right? So he gets smacked in the face with Nanami's death, right? Then Nobara almost dies. Or I think it's like I might be out of order with it, but it's like, okay, he turns to Sukuna, and he finds out what happened with that. Then it's like Nanami, then it's Nobara. And it's just so much stuff, and it's not until really Toto comes and like kind of he basically slaps his senses to him. He's like, "Yo, I gotta relax." But we didn't really get to see like how all that stuff like affected his character, and we get to see in this like thing because he's in like a courtroom. I actually love I actually mess up on his name all the time, but Higurama, okay, my fault. But Higurama, like I actually do love his moveset where it's like because he's like the first domain expansion and stuff where we kind of see how older JJK people and stuff like that their movesets were more interesting. Like I think they even point out that like back in the day domain expansions weren't as OP in the sense of like they were more interesting kind of like this. It was a different like dynamic.
Yeah, this was definitely one of the first domain expansions where we saw a sure hit effect like his. And his, I guess they didn't really talk about the other variables about his punishment. The only punishment we saw was the confiscation of cursed energy and the sword, which he could completely, I think it was kill an opponent, like a one-hit kill type of thing. So I was definitely interesting to see because all the other domain expansions we've seen is big, action, explosive, but his is more of I wouldn't say artistic, but kind of that vibe.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Like, I guess it's just a matter of like, it's not like really brawn type, like a big bronze type of thing, where it's kind of like Yuji's in the courtroom, like one of the scenes we see, and he's basically like, oh, you're guilty for destroying all this stuff in like the whole Shibuya arc, and he's like, yeah, I'm guilty. He basically like we all know that it's not true, and he basically asks Yuji, he's like, why'd you admit to it where it's not you? And Yuji's kind of like, we see how Yuji, processes things, obviously. So it was a really, really cool perspective. And that only can come from his domain expansion, like his abilities. So that was really like, it made the fights, I think, more complex.
Yes.
It's not just a battle. Yeah, so.
And it was the first fight, or I'm pretty sure it was the first major fight of the Culling game, so it was a good preview to what we got to see. But this fight is going to have to rank fairly low on the list, considering it wasn't much of a fight, but a really cool character moment. Next on this list, we have Yuji, Maki, and Hana versus Sukuna. Another, I guess, maybe a shocker low on the list, because while we got to see, well, technically when I was reading this fight, I felt like a kid in the candy store because we were getting Yuji and Maki. That was already an amazing duo. We have a new character in Hana, mainly Yuji versus Maki versus the big dog Sukuna, someone that's been foreshadowed for who knows how long. And these are the two physically strongest characters I think we've seen in the series. Yuji versus Maki going against Sukuna. But yeah, just an amazing, like, it was almost fan service without the usual term of fan service, but Gege was giving us what we really dreamt of, you know what I'm saying? But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess I think again this is a better moment than it is a fight, and obviously we kind of make the joke about how Culling games is all about fights, but in this part of the story, it was a lot of like deposition. Obviously, like we say Sukuna, but honestly we should call him like I think they say like Meguna or something like that, because this is Sukuna in Megumi's body. Like this is not like this is like a different type of thing where it's like a whole shock because no one expected this to happen. So seeing them fight and seeing Meguna, which is I don't know if that's a dub thing by the fan base, which is it's just funny to me, but seeing him fight against Yuji, and it's funny because he always belittles Yuji like incredibly. He's like, yeah, Yuji's not strong, but we see he makes know about Hana and specifically Maki's strength. It was like, okay, it was a cool. I think it was more of a cool scene than it was a fight. Like the fight actually wasn't that good, if we're gonna be honest.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't say it wasn't that good, but it was a one chapter fight. But I don't know, just seeing Maki and Sukuna just throw hands. I think there was a really cool moment where Sukuna straight up punches Maki and she just spits out the blood and keeps going. And Sukuna's even like, hell yeah. It was just something from the dreams, bro. But
yeah, well, yeah. I didn't mean to say not good, that good of a fight. I guess it's not like we're talking about like the peak of Culling games. I think it stays like kind of square on the lower end, honestly. But yeah,
I understand what you're saying. It was a one chapter fight, a few pages, and Hana shows up and one shots him also. Next on this list is again a Sukuna fight. He went back to back with Sukuna versus Yorozu, a fight I didn't really think highly of, but CADomain kind of likes it.
Yeah, honestly, I need to go back and look at the Megumi versus Reggie fight, which we'll get into a little bit later. But I did enjoy the fight. Like again, this is one of those fights. The whole everything Mekuna like era stuff, which is like the last couple, almost the last maybe 5 to 10 chapters, has been more deposition than I think fights. We get kind of information about Yuruzo. Obviously, we get more information about Sakuna. We get like stuff on that, and basically like the backstory, and we kind of not I would say the backstory, but we get more deposition about like the whole Henin area and the Henin era and how everything was. So it's really. I think it was a good fight. Like we kind of got to see like Sakuna really like use more of the abilities of Megumi, so that was cool to see. I enjoyed it. Like I think like Yuruzo, she's a top tier. She's a low key top tier character that I think might not get the praise she deserves because of this is like her really only fight. But yeah, what do you feel about that fight?
Definitely, I see what you're saying, but I just felt like Gege was teasing us a little bit too much. Across the Culling with the reincarnated sorcerers, he kept dropping hair in error this, the 5 empty generals, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong, the 6 void warriors, all these little fights, tidbit characters from the old time into this new time, and it'd be pretty cool just to see him give us an old time hair and error arc. Of course, Sukuna vs. Yorozu, I think this was the fight where we saw the most Harry era content. We saw Sukuna back then, we saw Urame back then, obviously we saw Yorozu back then. But yeah, this fight, I actually love the action. I loved seeing Sukuna utilize the 10 shadows. This was his first, and I mean, of course he's in Megumi's body for a while now, or not in a while, but this was the first time we saw the 10 shadows curse technique under Megumi, besides the new we saw with the Maki and Yuji, and we saw him utilize it to the fullest potential, which makes me excited if we ever see Megumi come back to see him do it. But specifically on this fight, again, amazing fight, amazing Sukuna showcase. Every time he's on the screen, he shows out, but I wasn't messing too much with Yorozu. I mean, the domain expansion was cool, but it was mainly a Sukuna thing for me, seeing Maharaga, seeing him utilize Maharaga in his 8-folded wheel, saying that wrong again, but yeah, definitely it was more of a Sukuna showcase that got me on this fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was kind of the point of it, like giving us a character that Sukuna could go out of his way to kill and defeat and like utterly destroy, because he can't kill Aki or Yuji or even Hana. He's not like the same avenue. So yeah, I agree, it was more for Sukuna, but I did enjoy the fight. I think it was a really cool. I think it's a mid-tier games fight.
Well, next, speaking of Sukuna, but really speaking of Megumi, we have a Megumi versus Reggie fight. And this was the second fight we saw in the Culling games, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, this is probably Megumi versus Reggie's goons, and obviously the big dog, Reggie himself. And this was a fight I read a couple times, maybe 3-4 times to fully grasp it and like it. Obviously, it wasn't a too confusing fight, especially, well, until we got to Megumi's domain expansion, then they will, you know what I'm saying, I had to really read it. But I like the fights. I feel like it was actually a fight. It wasn't too much of a character moment like Yuji vs. Higurama. We got to see Megumi use domain expansion again. Anytime he uses it, I love it. We saw a little progression of power in Megumi, something that is very slow to see, especially with a character like Megumi, his versatility. Unlike a character like Yuji, we can clearly see a progression in power through his fights. And Megumi, the progression in power is really subtle, but it's still there. Love to see that. Reggie, yeah, he was a mid Culling Games character. I feel like he saw the reality of what it was. I mean, he's a businessman. He saw the reality of what it was. Fully immersed himself in the Culling Game lifestyle that we have to do. But definitely, I love Megumi in this.
Yeah, I'm trying to actually remember. This is one of the fights I think probably one of the fights I remember the least, just overall. Like what you said, you had to go and kind of read through that fight again a couple times just to really get it. It actually is crazy. It is crazy thinking about this is Megumi's last like fight. But of all the main characters, I like Megumi. Probably has the most complicated, besides like Akari and stuff. But like I'm talking about like Yuji and Maki and Obara, like. Megumi's fight, like, he has the most clever fighting style, right? If you see anytime he fights, like, he uses like Maharaga, like besides even that, like you have like obviously he has like the dogs, like the bunny, like the way he fights every time he fights, because he's usually never as strong as or has as much cursed energy as the people he's fighting. So we usually end up getting to see like him kind of outsmarting his opponent, and I kind of enjoy seeing Megumi like fight like that. And kind of to your point, the progression of him in his fights is not the same as Yuji. Like Yuji's just gonna punch harder. I do enjoy like his fights overall, and I think this is probably this was like one of his best ones, honestly. Besides like the Toji.
Yeah, just like you said, we don't really see Megumi punch harder, jump higher, but he fights smarter and he gains a lot more experience for each fight. This fight didn't really have too much thematic aspects of it. It was more of a fight and more of a, oh, look at what Megumi can do. He's the real dude. And more of a, again, it was kind of like a preview to a lot of the other higher fights in the series. We saw the introduction of Tabaka, I'm pretty sure it's Takaba. That dude can turn anything he thought was funny to reality. Megumi standing, it was like the last panel of the fight. Megumi just standing there with blood all over his face. Definitely a cool moment for him. But yes, moving on, we have kind of low, but we have the Maki and Naoya, or Maki and Noritoshi versus Naoya Zenin. This is a fight which I think the next fight in this list is truly switchable, which is Yuta. Sorry for the spoiler, but I truly think that these two fights are switchable. But specifically on this Maki and Noritoshi versus Naoya fight, this is a fight that actually I really liked rereading. The thing about Maki is that we never really got to see her reaction to the Zenin massacre before this fight. You know what I'm saying? We saw her did it. Obviously, she knew what she was doing, but we never really saw her how it impacted her psyche and mental. And especially since the Shibuya, a lot of things happened to her. She lost her twin sister. Her whole clan was murdered by her. And we never really got to see Maki waver. She just said, keep going. I'm the dude. I got to do what I've got to do. Let's keep going. And I feel like Naoya was the final stopping wall to her really achieving what a character can do, especially when it comes to her power. So it was really cool to see Maki have to go through that hurdle of understanding herself and better understanding her power. But what do you think about the fight?
Yeah, honestly, like I've always been a big Maki fan. When the whole like Zenin massacre happened, I was like, yeah, Maki is literally that nigga. Like she's literally hurt, right?
Yeah.
And in this fight, we kind of get like a look into her, like the not like her actual conscious and how she thinks about everything. And Naoya, with Naoya, it's like he survived the whole Zenin massacre. So it's like he's kind of one of the remnants of Maki's past, and we know he basically was kind of always a dick towards her. So it's like that, and he has the whole thing where he's like, okay, he was like, oh, Toji was this god. He views Toji and he views Toji in this high light, right?
Yeah.
So seeing Maki, he's like, you're not Toji, like you can never be him, type thing, right?
You're not that dude.
And he's like, yeah, you're not that dude. And it's like, but we already by this time know Maki physically is as like basically it's already been pointed out kind of to agree he's as strong as Toji. But it's like a mental thing. Like she don't have that dog in her yet. So I'm pretty sure this is like when she kind of gets. It's basically like a little it's like a little fake time skip, right? Where she kind of ends up getting to like really like mentally get there. She basically gets the Toji dog, and now she's basically as powerful as Toji is. So it's like okay, and we get to see that whole thing. And I think there was even the whole didn't he like Naoya uses like domain expansion, and we find out it doesn't really work on Maki because Maki doesn't have cursed energy.
Yes.
So it's like, whoa, that I think adds another wrinkle where it's like, okay, Maki might be important to fighting people. I mean, she's not as strong as, but she could be important to fight people against like Sukuna, Kenjaku, like those, like that just gave her another like layer of importance potentially. So that was a cool thing. It was just, I really enjoyed this fight. I think this is Maki's peak as of right now.
Definitely, this was definitely a Maki power showcase, and of course the thing with the domain expansion is very important for a character moving forward. But shout out to my boy Noritoshi Kamo, yes, the blood user. I loved his performance because this was a character I really didn't think we were ever going to see again. I thought he was going to stay behind with the Kyoto people like Todo, Momo, Miwa, but they're showing up a little bit now and more, but not as much as the current cast of characters in the Culling games overall. But yeah, shout out to this dude. He kind of got bodied by Naoya, but this dude, he kind of already expected to get bodied, but he was really putting on a show for us. He was, we got to see a lot of the Kamo, or some of the Kamo family and their little dynamic. I love to see that. But yeah, Noritoshi was putting on a show. Definitely loved him. Also, there were two other characters. I kind of forget their names. The swordsman and the sumo guy. Definitely loved their incorporation, helping Maki break free of her chains. But yeah, this was an amazing fight with hype. Had some thematic aspects to it. So yeah, I think it deserves its spots. Again, I truly think it's switchable with the next fight. And the next fight being Yuta versus the three-way deadlock, or technically four-way deadlock, but we only saw the 3 fights. I can't really say the guy with the head cannon's name like that, and I know the bug one, but yes, I think when I read this fight, the only fights that came before it was what? Yuji and Megumi's fight. I definitely thought Yuta's fight was the best out of everything we had seen so far at that point, just because, I mean, Yuta, and this was the first time I saw him fight. I think I read this fight, and then I read JJK Zero, so this is the first time I really saw what Yuta was made of, and I was not disappointed. I mean, this guy was full on tanking blasts from the, was it Ryu? Ryu. Ryu. He was full on
Ryu
blasts from this dude's head cannon with his bare hands. We saw Rika get in, and I really think this fight kind of solidified Yuta's placement, or Yuta's placement in Gojo's mind as the next successor of him. This fight was definitely Yuta's time to showcase that and show, Gojo foreshadowed me, and he was right in doing that. I'm that dude. And of course, when he said, "Oh, I'm gonna be the one to kill Kenjaku," another hype moment, and he proved it. I mean, he fought 3 people at the same time. The domain expansion moment between the 3 of them were just so peak. Can't wait for that to get animated. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this was a really, really great fight, and that is actually crazy how you watch JJK Zero after, at this point. But I mean, honestly, saying that's like crazy hype. I always thought, obviously, I already knew like Yuta was hard, he was tough, but seeing kind of how he scales, like Ryu's a really, really powerful character. It's like, okay, we're really getting to see what everyone's all about. So I enjoy, and honestly, this is probably one of the only like three-way, four-way deadlock fights we've ever gotten, like a battle royale type of thing. So that was cool to see, just in general. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I am taking the Maki fight over this just because I think the Maki fight was more hype. But I have I've heard arguments for the Yuta one. So
I mean, yeah, I could see it. I feel like I would take this Yuta fight over the Maki fight just because of the villains. You have Yuro, I'm not talking about that bug guy, but Yuro and Ryu. Honestly, maybe even over Kashimo, they might have been my favorite Culling game villains, because I didn't really see Kashimo.
Okay.
It's kind of debatable, but I think that they're up there with Kashimo when it comes to Culling game villains, Yuro and Ryu, and they had a kind of nice resolution when it came to everything. Yuta didn't kill them. He had a conversation with them, and they're not bad dudes with Ryu, especially his character moments with him just wanted to be satisfied with the hunger of battle. He just wants a nice little battle he never got to see in his past life. And Yuru, she's not dead, unlike Ryu. He got kind of sliced up by Sukuna, but we're definitely going to see more of Yuru down the line. But yeah, that's, again, Maki versus Yuta, or Maki and the Yuta fight, kind of switchable, but I have Yuta over it. Next, we have the top 2 fights of the series. My personal favorites next, Yuki and Chozo versus Kenjaku. I guess you could add Master Tengen, but he was kind of selling the fight. Now, this fight was honestly, like with the Yuta fight, the peak of everything that had happened at that point, in my opinion, especially because of the thematic aspects to it. So obviously, we saw Chozo's almost last stand against Kenjaku, but it was mainly Yuki versus Kenjaku, because if you remember, Yuki had a philosophy that she sort of impressed onto Geto that he sort of modified and made his own move with it. But Yuki's philosophy about breaking free of cursed energy was very different from Kenjaku's philosophy, because evolving humanity through cursed energy, while Yuki wanted to break free of it. I think that was along the lines of her thinking. But yeah, this was definitely a clash of the superheads of the Culling games, you know what I'm saying? Because if Kenjaku won, obviously Kenjaku's plans prospered, which we're seeing it now. If Yuki won, most of the Culling game would stop, you know what I'm saying? So I honestly didn't I felt like I didn't foresee the Sukuna stuff at all. I thought this was going to be the final fight of the Culling games, Yuki versus Kenjaku. This fight really, the whole arc really hinged on this fight, and how the story would go really hinged on this fight. But yeah, personal favorite of mine. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. While I was reading it, I definitely would say it just didn't feel like it would end here. I mean, I was binging it, so that could be a factor, but I just didn't feel like, I just didn't see Yuki was going to win. But the fight in general was amazing. Like, I think, again, it's funny because I'm like, I always kind of talk about, we got to talk about Yuki low key caused Geto to kind of, descend. Well, she gave him kind of a push in that direction of his mindset was, and obviously Kenjaku and all that. But it was interesting, and we obviously know Yuki is a special grade. She's been that for a while. Like, she, don't talk about it, but even back in the day when Gojo was a kid, or when he was younger, like a teenager, the second strongest was not like Geto, even though they say like the two strongest are Geto and Gojo. It was like Yuki, like because we know she was how powerful she was. So, and like you kind of pointed out, Yuki, it was really just her fighting Kenjaku. Like Chozo kind of he battled Kenjaku at first, and kind of got dropped, and then he came back. So it was really more Yuki fighting Kenjaku. But she held her own. I do enjoy the fight. I think we kind of see this. We low key see Kenjaku get pressed. Like Kenjaku was high key getting, like, he could have lost the fight easily. So it was a really cool fight to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think this was the first head-to-head special grade fight we've seen between two curse users. Of course, we saw Gojo versus Jogo and Jogo versus Kuna, but between curse users and Jutsu sorcerers, this was the first special grade fight and definitely solidified why special grade is special grade. But yeah, crazy good character moment for Chozo. I saw a tweet a few days ago about how Chozo's role has surpassed his initial role, because I don't think Gege really expected Chozo to become as popular and monumental to the story. Yuki really pressed Kenjaku. Like, I wanted Yuki to win so bad, but obviously that didn't happen. But she pressed her at the most, which should go as a testament to her power and character. But enough of that fight, because it's number 2. And number 1's the best, and that's number 1, Kari versus Kashimo. Now, honestly, I might have put Yuki and Chozo over this one, but this was CADomain's choice, so why don't you go ahead and explain that?
Yeah, I mean, I just think Hikaru versus Kashimo, it's gotta be like the best fight in the Culling games. Like, we talk about hype moments, like obviously we get to see Hikari's. I mean, we get to see his. Don't we get to see his domain expansion? Yeah, we get to see his domain expansion, which is like, okay, my domain expansion, I have basically unlimited curse energy, and obviously there's more stipulations to that, but it's like, oh snap, like people, we get to the point where people kind of like comparing it, like, oh, can he beat Gojo? Could he beat like in this time frame? But it's like, you know, even though obviously we know Gojo's negging everyone in the verse, you know, except for like Sukuna, we just really see like two, I'd say, elite top tier people go at it, and it's tough. Like, I think the fight has everything you'd want in it. Although I do think it is when I read it the first time, I had to like go back and look at it again, but it was just amazing. Like, there's not much I could say about the fight. I think like hype moments, like just everything involved, like climax. I think it has to be number 1. But what are your thoughts on it?
Okay, definitely when it comes to hype, I think this fight takes the cake over all the fights in the Culling games. I mean, the hype in this fight was unreal, especially when Kashimo realized Hikari was unkillable in his cursed energy bag, and he said, well, I'm gonna kill him anyway. I'm gonna kill the unkillable. Eventually, yeah, this fight was just a peak of hype. But again, the only reason I really would put it is number 2 under Yuki vs Chozo, because of the thematic aspects in Yuki vs Chozo. When it comes to hype, I think Hikari vs Kashimo makes up for that lack of thematic aspect, because I think it makes up for the hype. Again, seeing Kashimo fight, honestly, yeah, over Ryu and Yuro was my number 1 favorite Culling game villain or antagonist, just because I don't think he was much of an antagonist. He has a goal like all the other characters in Culling games, and they kind of just intersected with Hikari and his gang's goal, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, seeing them fight, seeing the hands thrown, seeing Hikari hit domain expansion back to back, there was a moment where they were really trading, punching a metal crater between them, two of them. The fight, the hands, just all of it was just hype. I wouldn't call it the peak of the Culling games. I think it was one of the biggest peak, but I did like that we saw a little bit of the intricacy of Hikari's domain expansion, Kashimo's curse technique and curse energy, while still seeing some monster hands. That's what JJK does the best: intricacy versus hype. Again, I think that was the peak of what JJK does best.
Yeah, I think when you look at, it's funny because we talk about Culling games being this fighting arc, but I think some of the hypest moments in the Culling games aren't. They're more like, we talk about, you know, the Makuna fight was really good, kind of thing. Like you said, the Chozo Kenjaku fight was good, because those are like the thematic parts of it. But just in terms of hands, like, I think I enjoyed the Culling game just in general, and I think that like Hikari and Kashimo is a good example of that. And just kind of like it, like I think this is like, it's one of those fights where it's like, when this gets animated, it's gonna like break the internet. Like, it's gonna be one of those things.
Yeah, that pretty much wraps up the video. Again, I don't want to list it all, but Hikari vs Charles at the bottom, Panda vs Kashimo, Yuji vs Higurama, Yuji, Maki, and Hana vs Sukuna, Sukuna vs Yorozu, Megumi vs Reggie, Maki and Noritoshi vs Niowa, Yuta vs the three-way deadlock, Yuki, Chozo vs Kenjaku, and Hikari vs Kashimo at the top. And honestly, this is a list I'm pretty proud of. I think we did a really good job with it. Thank you for your help.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, bro. Like, obviously, we're definitely gonna be collabing on more videos coming soon. But yeah, no, it was fun. The Culling games, giving our thoughts on all the fights and where we think they all scale in terms of everything. But yeah,
Yeah, we do a more in-depth discussion of the Culling games overall as an arc and compare it to Shibuya even on his channel. So that video is gonna come out at the same time as this video. But yeah, first ever collab on this channel, proud of it. Hope to do more. And hot take of the day: JJK has the best hands of any anime you've ever seen and I've ever seen. Anyway, that's I mean, it's
okay, okay.
JJK. It's a hot
Okay.
take. It's a
That's
hot
definitely
take.
a hot take for sure, for
But
sure. I'm not even gonna give what anime I think has the best hands, but yeah, I think that's not a crazy take though.
okay,
That's a
well,
good hot take for sure.
yeah. Well, that wraps up the video. Make sure you have a nice day. Stay safe. Yeah.